You guys do what I expect you to do.
We'll call it in order and have a pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. And we'll start out with roll call.
Mr. Boggs. Mr. Epperson.
Here.
Mr. Begarow.
Here.
Mr. McGowan.
Here.
Mr. Davis.
Here.
Ms. Rogers. Here. Mr. Truax.
Here. Okay, next on the agenda is old business. And Article A is still to remain tabled. Article B needs to be released for the rezoning application of ZON 19-003. Do I hear a motion to remove that from table?
Motion.
Second? Second. Any discussions? Roll call, please.
Ms. Rogers.
Yes.
Mr. McGowan.
Yes.
Mr. Epperson.
Yes.
Mr. Begarow.
Yes.
Mr. Truax.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Okay, we'll start with the notes from the zoning. Jack?
Thank you, sir. Like I said, this is ZON-19-003. The applicant here is Grand Communities. Its location is an unimproved property at 6031 Summit Road Southwest. Acreage is 84.18. It's currently zoned R87 medium low density residential. The applicant is requesting approval of a preliminary plans for a 183 lot plan development district titled Sage Point pursuant to section 1255.19 of the Pasco Code. So here's an area map of the subject property outlined in yellow here. And then we'll go over the summary. Some things have changed since the previous iterations of this plan. Total acreage is still the same. The frontages are still the same, and the existing tree lines are all the same. Here's a look at the existing conditions of the property, mainly used for agricultural farmland now. A little bit of zoning history. So it's been considered for development into a residential subdivision 3 times previously. All proposed rezonings were not accepted by City Council. Below is a table of some of the previous attempts at rezoning this property. So as for the applicant's proposal, it's again to develop the property into a 183 lot planned residential development titled Sage Point, and 10 acres of the frontage on Cleveland Road Southwest is to be dedicated to the Licking Heights School District. Here's a look at the old layout of the plan and the new layout. So you can see there are some things that have changed. The summary has been updated. Here in the items in the red are what has changed. So total home size is 183, which is down from 211. Densities of 2.17, which is now from 2.51. Total acreage remains the same. The acreage in residential lots is down from 35.58 to 31.07. The open space is at 29.60, which is up from 28.60. And the acreage to be dedicated to Licking Heights is the same. So the minimum lot sizes, minimum lot width is 57 feet, up from 52. Minimum lot size is 57 by 120, or 0.16 acres, which is up from approximately 0.14. Minimum setbacks front remain the same at 25. The side is now 8 feet minimum for a total of 16, which is up from, excuse me, it should be a 5 foot each and 10 foot total. Rear yard setbacks remain the same at 20. Here's a look at the typical lot layout. Then access is to be served by one boulevard-style entrance onto Sage Point Avenue from Summit Road Southwest, which is opposite of Windward Drive. A 14-foot wide median at the entrance, and 14-foot wide lanes on either side of that median. Here's a closer look at the entrance that's proposed. You can see Summit Road here running north to south, and the boulevard entrance. There's one emergency access drive from Sage Point Avenue to Cleveland Road Southwest that is to be built to fire department standards. The portion that is within the 10-acre dedication is to be improved to the 24-foot pavement back to back when development occurs on stub street to the south on Lavender Lane. Here's a closer look at the emergency access. Be paved all the way up to the 10-acre dedication, and then the emergency access built to fire department specs, and when development will occur on this parcel, that will also be improved to the same standard as this portion. Here's a look at the total potential accesses to the site on Summit here, to the west, south, from Lavender Lane, and the emergency access. Signage, one subdivision identification signs proposed inside the median on the entrance to Sage Point Avenue. Type is a hanging sign suspended from a wood pergola with additional landscaping in the median, and that proposed sign will be within the right of way. Here's a look at the proposed entrance signage. Landscaping, street trees are proposed at every 50 feet with 7 different species of trees. The existing tree lines on the northeast, southwest, and the tree stand on the north to be preserved, excepting where dead and diseased trees and where development will be occurring. Most lots, excepting lots 8 through 13, and lots 169 through 174, have been moved out of the tree preservation zones, and those areas are placed into reserves. 78 trees are being removed, 220 replacements are required per the code, 238 are being proposed, 183 of these trees are to be provided as 1 tree per front yard, and a 6 to 7 foot high mounding between the detention basins and home sites in reserves A and B with additional landscaping. There are 6 foot wide asphalt paths in reserve D, the proposed 36 foot by 40 foot tot lot, and 2 6 foot wide asphalt paths leading into reserve E, and another 2 leading into reserve C. Here's a look at the old landscaping plan and the new landscaping plan, with the tot lot being here in reserve D with a asphalt path, 2 asphalt paths leading into reserve here and here. So the following comments are from previous hearings. We'll just gloss over these, but they are here for reference if we need them. And for tonight's hearing, so Planning and Zoning staff has the following comments to offer. The application was tabled at the March 6, 2019 Planning and Zoning Commission hearing. Revised plans were submitted for September 4th, and then it was tabled again at that hearing, so the applicant has submitted the revised plans for tonight's hearing. So attached to your staff report is a list of staff comments generated from previous submittals. The comments which have been resolved or struck through. Remaining comments are unstruck, and additional comments are in red. So the future land use map designates this property as medium density residential R-20. So the R20 minimum lot size is 0.46 acres, or approximately 0.16 acres is proposed. Allowable density under R20 would be 2.17 units per acre and 183 units total. The applicant has revised their plans to meet this, so therefore the proposed rezoning is now in line with the comprehensive plan. So here's a summary of the significant changes from the previous plans. So the eyebrow streets have been removed, Woodruff Drive has been removed, and along with the stub street to the north, Saffron Cove Court and Lemongrass Court have been extended and exceed the maximum cul-de-sac length from section 1117.10, but a divergence has been requested to allow this. Most lots have been adjusted, excepting those ones that were mentioned previously, to move them off the tree preservation zones, which have been placed into reserves, and language for the tree preservation zones was added. The total lots have been reduced to 183 from 211, the density down to 2.17 from 2.51. This is now in compliance with the section 12.10A1. And the side yard setbacks have been increased to 8 feet, up from 5 feet. This will give a minimum distance between the structures of 16 feet, which is compliant with 1255.10 G2. Again, here's the new layout, kind of showing the changes that they've made. The eyebrow streets are no longer present here, and the courts are now longer and exceed the maximum distance permitted. So the applicant has requested the following divergences. One, from section 1117.10, table 1, to allow for 2 cul-de-sacs to extend past the 500-foot maximum length. Saffron Cove Court at 725 feet, and Lemongrass Court at 650 feet. The second, from section 1255.10B1, to allow for more than 10% of the common open space to be used by stormwater facilities. The applicant's proposing to use 4.17 acres out of a total of 29.6, or about 14.09%. from section 1283.05A to allow for street trees to be planted at 50-foot intervals as opposed to the 30-foot intervals required. And 4, from section 1283.07 Part C, requires a 60-foot buffer perpendicular to the right-of-way to be landscaped to the L5 standard. The applicant's requesting to place the L5 standard landscaping behind the retention ponds, approximately 125 feet from the right-of-way. And then finally, number 5, 1295.09B8, to allow for a subdivision entry sign to exceed the maximum height of 6 feet by 1.5 feet for a total of 7.5 feet. Also to allow for the sign to be of a hanging type as opposed to the monument style required by this section. So with the revised layout, no additional divergences are required. So staff does have the following additional comments on the submittal. Number 1, the development text lists the minimum floor area for homes without a basement as 1,400 square feet, whereas the code requires 1,450. We'd like some clarification on whether the applicant intends to meet this minimum or if the applicant needs to request a divergence to allow for a minimum floor area of 1,400 square feet. Lots 8 through 13 and 169 through 174 were not adjusted to have the rear tree lines placed in reserve, and now there is no tree protection zone within these lots. These trees are identified by the landscaping plan as being left in place. However, there is no language within the plans to preserve or protect these trees or account for replacement if need be. 5-foot easements will be required on the side yard, 10-foot easements in the rear. These are still not provided, and 10 acres to be dedicated to Licking School District was removed from the open space calculation. However, the development standards or language for the school sub-area are still absent from the development text, and the applicant did not provide a red line copy of the development text for this current submittal. So the city engineer had the following comments on this submittal. No additional engineering comments on this application. However, the comments sent on August 25th, which was for the September 4th hearing, would still apply. And the fire district commented that the emergency apparatus access road shall be installed at the same time as phase 4 starts. So for the surrounding properties, to the north it's zoned rural residential. Current land use is farm field. To the east we have it zoned residential, manufactured home residential, and R87 medium and low density residential, which is the Summit Ridge Estates and several single family homes. To the south we have it zoned as R87 and M1. The R87 being single-family homes, and the M1 being Ohio Steel and various miscellaneous businesses. To the west, we have it zoned Planned Development District and R20 medium-density residential, being the Glenbrook subdivision and several other single-family homes. So, should the Planning and Zoning Commission choose to approve the applicant's request, the following modifications may be considered. 1 being the applicant shall address all comments from the planning and zoning staff, city engineer, public service director, and the West Licking Joint Fire District. 2, the planning and zoning commission shall approve the following divergences. A, section 1 from section 1117.10 table 1. B from section 1255.10B1. C from section 1283.05A. D from section 1283.07C. And E from section 1295.09B8. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Jay. Couple questions. I know that we've gone through this quite a few times, and after the last one, we strongly urge that they get with you guys and discuss with the zoning department. Was there a lot of communication that came through, or and communication on all the issues that we had?
The applicant did not reach out to us.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, I'll start right now, though. I'm going to yield right now. Over here to Robert. Go ahead, Robert. Any questions?
Not right now.
All right.
No questions.
Ann, any questions?
No, not yet.
Dustin?
Could you remind me again why there's a set distance on cul-de-sac length?
I couldn't say it's in our code, so we just go by with the code, so I don't know the thought process behind a length on a cul-de-sac.
Okay. Darren?
No questions right now.
Okay. Then we'll give the people with the chance from Grand Communities to step on up. Who all will be speaking? If you all want to come
Sure.
up, it's up to you.
No, my name is Jason Wisniewski. I'm the Vice President of Planning and Zoning for Grand Communities, 3940 Olympic Boulevard, Erlanger, Kentucky.
Okay, hold on one second, we'll get you sworn in. Please.
Raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm your testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Would you like to do your presentation?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Jack. Usually Connie Klima's here on our behalf. She had a prior engagement, so I guess I have to do it. I'm going to breeze through a few things because I think Jack has done a great job of kind of summarizing the issues. I just kind of wanted to say, I know Connie and David Denniston, our engineer with Advanced Civil Design, did reach out to staff. I don't know if there was a ton of communication. I can't directly speak to it. I know we did communicate, but a lot of the communication was, it was pretty clear what you guys wanted after the last meeting. And what we've tried to do, and what I'm going to just kind of briefly go through here is, we've accommodated what we could accommodate, and we have asked for divergences where necessary. I kind of walk through why those divergences are necessary, or we think they're necessary. But again, this is the concept plan up here, 183 sites, that's down from the 211 previously. One of the key things I want to point out here is almost 90% of these sites back to some form of open space. Now that has a very positive value, not only on the saleability of those homes, but the long-term value, i.e. tax dollars that come into the city through that increased value of these homes. We've increased the width, or the building separation. Obviously, we now meet the standard minimum, and I'm sure there will be cases where they'll exceed that, but at least, again, that minimum 16 feet separation was planned for. Jack's gone through most of the things that are on this list. The previous divergences we had 10 of them. I'm gonna, again, Jack went through most of those, so I'm gonna skip over the ones, the density we exceeded and then brought down. But the few that I wanna highlight is, one of the divergences is that more than 10% of our open space is being used for stormwater. And the reason for that is we are accommodating stormwater we're trying to make the downstream situation in Glenbrook better. So essentially what happened is the green area up there is how much water is actually flowing through the Greenbrook stormwater system. That's how much water is going there today. What was planned for, what that system has actually planned to accommodate, is what is in yellow. So we are oversizing our basins to accommodate that stormwater and then release it at the appropriate rate for which the existing Glenbrook subdivision is designed. So we're solving that problem, which means that we have more stormwater in our open spaces, which means that we're asking for a divergence because we're accommodating more water. So I understand we're asking for a divergence, but there's a rationale behind it. We've exceeded the maximum cul-de-sac lengths, yes, but I want to point out that previously, in the previous plan, I think we were asking for about 850 feet, so we have brought that down by about 125 feet from what we were previously asking. The Summit Road buffer, again, what the code requires is for that landscaping to be right along Summit Road. What we've done is pushed it back behind the ponds. Really what it does is it creates more of a visual interest as you go along Summit Road. You'll see the landscaping behind, you'll see the ponds. There will be a lot more kind of visual interest in that regard, and it provides a little bit more screening for the residents who have that buffer closer to their homes. So it's a little bit more desirable that way. But it's not that we're not giving the buffer, we're just giving it in a different place. So the landscaping, the amount, and the width is all the same, it's just the location is. And then the street and hanging sign, or the hanging sign component of it. What we're asking for here is the traffic is coming north and southbound, right? So if we have a sign that is hanging now it now faces, not that we couldn't do this with a different style of sign, but it fits more the theme of it. But the way that we have it, it meets the theme. It's more visible from both north and south, which is where the traffic is going. And again, we just think it better fits what the modern garden theme that we're going for in the community. So I'm going to open it up to questions, but again, just some of the imagery that we've used in the past, some of the benefits of this. You know, this, we've talked about cluster development, we've talked about how that results in an efficient street system for you guys, both in terms of development costs for us, but long-term maintenance, ownership and maintenance of utilities and streets, for the city, the open spaces, the number of homes that back into those open spaces increases their value, maximizes the tax dollars that come out of the streets that we're putting in and the value of those homes. The donation of land, it's not a sale. I just want to be clear about that. We are purchasing. Grand Communities will be purchasing and then giving 10 acres to the school district. Those conversations have occurred between us and the school. That's what they've wanted. I know there were some concerns about the long-term ownership and maintenance of that and how are they going to mow it and do all those other things. Not my problems to solve, quite frankly, but again, that's what they wanted. We gave them, we're giving them that land, and again, that land is fairly expensive. And then we're accommodating the stormwater issues that are occurring in Glenbrook. And finally, you know, there's the improvements along, at least at the entrance to the community. There will be a left turn lane, southbound left turn lane into the community off of Summit. The right-of-way acquisition, the right-of-way that we would be donating to or giving to the city along Summit as part of the planning process. So those are all benefits that we believe come out of it. But I appreciate your time. I answer any questions as I can, and thank you all.
Thank you. Start down here again. Ann, you want to start?
No.
Charlie?
No.
Robert?
You're the new face, Mr. Davis. I thought you I was waiting.
Yes, thank you. So, yes, of course, mine is the 10 acres. So, I mean, like you said, it's not your problem, but it's all of our problems.
Sure.
We're the ones that have to pay. And you're saying that's what they wanted, that's what the school wanted.
Right.
Is the school preventing you from being able to do this project? I mean, it's, when we talked last time, you talked about it, there wasn't something you needed to do, it wasn't something required, you know, kind of like you would potentially take that off the table. Now it's, you know, you want to give the land to them, the taxpayers are the ones that they get hit with that. So,
I guess here's how I understand that, but from our perspective, when we go into any community, we engage key stakeholders, right? Residents, staff, officials, school districts being one of them. What are your needs? Do you have needs? Is there something that we can do to help gain A, your support, and B, accommodate what you need? When we had that conversation, this is what they requested. And again, I can say, on one hand, I can say, oh my gosh, the ownership and maintenance cost of that is X. But the ownership and maintenance cost of it, it would take a lot for me. It would take a lot of convincing, or somebody would have to convince me that those costs are anywhere close to the cost of them 3, 5, 10 years from now going back to somebody and trying to buy land, 10 acres of land somewhere at a price that would be equal to or less than what they had to pay for the maintenance of this. And I think that's,
right.
you know,
What
that's
it,
what it
what
comes
it
down
is
to.
though is it's the choice is taken away. For them to go and buy that land in the future, I'm more concerned about what they're going to do with it in a couple of years and what they're going to want us to pay for, what the next levy is going to be because they already own the land. When they go to do that, if they have to buy the land, they have to get votes and approval
Sure.
from the community to buy it. Now, basically, they're being given it, and it's nothing on you guys. They asked for it, you have it there. But that's where my fear is they're being handed this. So now we got 10 acres of land. Well, you guys are paying for maintenance on it, so we're gonna come up with a bus garage or something like that. That's going to affect all the homes around that area. It's going to affect the homes that you're building. But again, that's not gonna be your problem at that point in time, because you've already sold all your properties. So it falls onto all the citizens of Pataskla to pay for it. And there's also, I live really close to the new high school. The school board is not the easiest to work with on these things. So there's a lot of people that are very touchy about that. And to give them 10 acres of land is just kind of like just giving them something that it's nerve-wracking for them to kind of get that. I have an analogy I want to use, but I don't want to use it. so, and that's my whole thing with this. It's actually honestly the 10 acres. That's all I got.
Thank you, Rob. I'll wait and come back. Dustin?
Just some comments. I wanted to state that, especially some of the things that I had issues with the first few plans, you guys have came in line with a comprehensive plan, and that's appreciated. So I just want to say thank you.
Darren?
Just one quick question. Are your retention ponds wet or are they dry?
They're gonna be wet.
So I just, that's all.
One thing I did want to comment on from staff, 2 comments there. The 1,400 square feet minimum versus 1,450. We'd meet the 1,450. We'll revise that text. So that is not, we're not going to get hung up over 50 square feet. The other is on lots, 8 through 13, and then 169 through 174. We will go back, or we would commit to putting the perimeter setback on those lots to preserve the trees. So we would take that off of the lots and make it consistent all the way around. So again, I don't want to get hung up on those few sites.
Okay. I have a question, I guess, with that property, there is no planned development for that property for the school. So what happens then 5 years from now or whatever when the school decides to do something with not having any plan, since this is a planned development, what's the issue, or what's the?
It would be pretty ambiguous depending upon what they wanted to do with it and the process that they would need to go through. That's why we've said, please put something in the text that will outline this so we have some idea of what's coming forward.
Okay.
Would that little piece of property be zoned the same?
It would be zone plan development district, however, with nothing in the text to address what it could potentially be that could possibly, without knowing, with all the variables, it could create issues later,
Could have to change that.
potentially.
Scott, they would have to, the school district would have to come in with some kind of plan, right, that you guys would have approval over.
Yes, potentially, but without any idea of what that could possibly be, there's too many variables to say procedurally what they would need to do.
And maintenance-wise, the schools can take over responsibility for the property? Mowing, umbrella, is it all the grass?
I believe so. Or it looks like farm field.
Agriculture.
Okay. And thank you for answering the questions about the trees. I appreciate that. Kind of the only thing I just want to the communication. We had a lot of stops and goes with this. It just going forward, it'd be nice if someone makes sure that communication's happening. It makes it so much easier for us to work
Sure.
and continue on than going back, stopping and going back. So, I know you said that you thought, but it'd be nice if someone could make sure that there's communication, because I thought we were pretty thorough last time about, there was a big list, and it would have been nice to have seen that you guys had a lot of communication over
I'll kind of piggyback on that. Jack's answer to that question was not the answer I was expecting to hear.
Okay.
So that's something that I can assure you I will dig into on our side to make sure that
Appreciate
this is a big deal. They're all a big deal, and then that communication is key.
Okay, I appreciate that. Any more questions or any?
Should we table this until those questions are
Well,
answered?
we have people that would like to speak too, so we can, if you wanna hear them,
Oh, we can
and
do
go
that.
from there, so, okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you. All right, I have 5 people that are ready to speak today, and I'll call your names. Please remember that if you spoke before, all of that is on record and all of that, is detailed for us. So, again, you're more than welcome to to speak your piece, but know that if you did speak before, all that's still on record. I have 5, I'm gonna call all 5, and we'll swear them in at once, and then you can come up one at a time. I have Matthew Roseberg, I think it is, Jerika Zuckerman, Jody Bowen, Ronald Thomas, and Susan Holmes. If you'll raise your right hand.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Yes, also, we're gonna do a 3-minute limit. Dustin will let you know, you can finish your sentence, but don't go into a whole nother topic, if you would, please, after the 3 minutes. We'll start with Susan Holmes. Still state your name and address, if you would, please.
Susan Holmes, 6334 Summit Road, Southwest Pataskla, Ohio. I heard that this is called the concept plan. True?
It's the preliminary development plan, which is the first step in the process. Following this, it will go to council for consideration and potentially rezone.
So it is not yet a preliminary plan that's been approved. So we all know that we are on a moratorium for development. If this is truly concept plan, not yet considered preliminary, I don't know why we're here. The fact that this is considered that, our zoning, you're calling it 2 different things. We have a comprehensive plan, and then we have a future comprehensive plan. It's been referred to both times. This does not, the stats that you've put out don't really meet with what our future plan is. And now that City Council has recognized our roads don't meet, and they're looking at our development for health, safety, welfare of us all, that's a big concern. I really appreciate your concern with the school development because the road will not support a bus garage, it will not support a school. I don't know what else they could put there, offices. But that road does not have the right of way, plus the intersections. So if we look at all that development, it really doesn't meet with our comprehensive plan, which is current, not future. And then we also have stormwater and the green map that you showed. Go out to that site when you get a 4-inch rain. That is not coming from the houses in the little subdivision. That is all from the farm field and probably what is developed behind that. There's a question on here if there are wetlands. I believe there are wetlands. That's why that development plan is laid out the way that it is. There are so many issues I think that we have to look at, like to allow that the open space is going to be part of the stormwater facility. Are we giving people kayaks to go out and use the green space? Because that's what the Plant D is about. You're putting houses close together so that they can go out and use the green space. We were told before that the 10 acres wasn't included in that stormwater calculation, and now we're seeing in here it is. So I think there's so many things that are crossed over between those two that haven't been taken into consideration. And then we also have the stubbed roads where we're going to put more houses and the same proposed density. So I think hit the pause button, go back to the comprehensive plan that we currently have. If you want to pretend there's a future plan, great. Let's find out what it is and put together a responsible project. Thank you.
In terms of her question about, is this gonna fall under the city council documents that they just did, or, the moratorium?
The comprehensive plan update is currently in the adoption process, so that cannot be considered. So all we can look at is the existing comprehensive plan. And then the moratorium, since this was filed prior to the moratorium going in effect, this is not subject to the moratorium.
Not subject to, okay, thank you. Next, we have Ronald Thomas.
I just have 1 or 2 small questions.
State your name and address, I'm sorry, Ronald.
My name is Ronald A. Thomas, and the address I'm using is 30 West Broad Street. The what price point are these homes going to be? Has that been determined?
It was previously. Do you guys know what the price range is on the houses?
Gonna be high twos to low threes.
And they're going to be about 1,400 square feet.
No.
14,
It's the minimum.
Minimum.
It's the minimum.
That's the minimum.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Next is Jody Bowen. Again, Jody, state your name and address.
Yes,
when you-
thank you. I think I forgot last time. It's Jody Bowen, 13645 Cleveland in Daskla. Most of my concerns still continue from the last time. Fortunately, the board has recognized a lot, and it was already stated some of the things I was gonna say, which was the 10-acre issue is a huge concern, as well as the density. We're heading in the right direction with fewer houses, but I think there's still a lot of room more for improvement, and I appreciate the board's diligence in staying with this, and thank you.
Jerika Zuckerman? I probably tore that last name up, I'm sorry.
It was the first name, actually.
State your name and address, please.
Jerika Zuckerman, 6368 Summit Road Southwest. I spoke previously, obviously we talked about the density and all that. I know that we can't take the future comprehensive plan into account when you're actually saying, does it fit what's currently there, but we have a vision for the city. You know, there's a place for cluster housing. It's typically closer to like a downtown area, you know, where it's zoned for that. And I just think that when we're talking about our area, we're talking about in the future comprehensive plan, making it like a 1 house to 2 acre density, you know, like a much more open area. And by putting this here, not only are we going backwards on what we thought was a really good plan, we're also suffocating our schools. We've seen that time and time again with every project that's coming in. Fisher Homes has made some beautiful projects up on Wagner. They have a really beautiful development. And I think that a lot of people would love a luxury house like that. But the yards are bigger, the houses are further apart, you know, you're not finding this cluster house, you're finding high value. And to bring high value into our community, that's what we want around there. We're looking to improve the area. We're going to develop the area one way or another. I think about the stormwater. I feel like they're buying the property that everything got funneled to. So that kind of comes with it. So to use that against, you know, the green open space and everything, you're buying a property with an issue. You can't use that issue and say, well, we're solving a problem. The problem's already on your property. You can't then turn it around and say, let me just use this as green space. I think that if they were able to get, you know, less houses, you know, bigger yards, and create more open space, that's really what that area of town is built for. And I know that, you know, you guys have you've acknowledged that in the future plan. Hopefully that will be adopted at some point. So I hope that that can be taken into consideration, and of course the school thing you've covered. So, thank you.
Thank you. Last is Matthew Rosenberg. Name and address again, sir.
Matthew Rosenberg, 6302 Summit Road, Southwest Pataska, Ohio. You know, first off, I'd say that it's great to see development want to try to come in, but I think we need to focus more on appropriate development for our area. You know, that area of town, former Summit Station, was a small community. It's not an area to be ready for cluster homes. Our school district isn't ready. And you know, clearly, quote, as he said, it's not our problem. Once it's built, they walk away from it, go back to Kentucky, and we have to live with that here in town. And the area in question doesn't have the infrastructure for it. Summit Road is not capable of additional traffic. I mean, we're talking 183 homes. Average home has 2 cars. You know, that's a lot of extra traffic on a roadway that's already very cluttered. You know, just as a matter of fact, last year the city changed no parking requirements for Cleveland Road and Summit, addressing that it was a safety hazard. because of the amount of traffic in the viewing area. So now we're gonna add more traffic in that area. We've also requested the schools change start times because of the amount of traffic through Summit and Cable. And so more homes in that area. And as far as, you know, brought up with the school's use of the 10 acres, that's gonna be a major concern because Cleveland, the neighborhood's not gonna want school traffic through it, and Cleveland Road is not adequate for the amount of traffic through there right now, let alone buses, additional cars and all that. I'd also like to, you know, take into consideration, section 1255.919, consideration of approval of a plan. When we look at, you know, the city is, says that to approve this plan, we need to look at both the emergency services and the infrastructure. The infrastructure is not there yet. We just barely got updated water on up Summit Road. Putting more on there is not going to do it. The roads aren't going to handle it. And then police and fire service. We are still playing catch up, especially with our police service, to try to put in 183 homes on 34 acres. Yes, the total acreage may be 84 acres, but when you give 10 to the school, open space of 20 some acres, and then roadways, 34 acres for 185 homes. And I know that there's been comments been made that that's what's selling right now, but I'd also like to allude to the corner of Taylor and Havens Corner, which is 5-acre plots that sold in a matter of months. There's a market in that in this area for larger plots, which would give us less density and a better environment for that. So I'd just like you guys to, you know, consider the area it's in, and also consider what we're going to be left with once they get done building and pack up and leave with that. So with that, I thank you for your time.
That being said, do we want to have a little discussion, or what's, or do we have any motions, or what's? I know you had talked about tabling, but I think we've had a lot of tables on this one already.
We have, we haven't, I don't know how you vote on something when you don't have all of your answers questions, except that I know how my problems are with all the divergences. I have a problem with the traffic flow, the school density, the Cleveland Road emergency access point, 3 phases down the road. I mean, to me, the stormwater system, it's just, that's why it's taken so long to get to this point. There are so many divergences. I just don't, to me, it's just a no. But I understand if the rest of the commission wants to hear answers to the other questions, so that we had prior. But that's just me.
Anybody else have any thoughts or ideas, or what do we want?
Well, I think that we've asked the questions and we've not gotten the answers. I don't think any of the questions we have are new. Is that correct?
I don't think it's,
Maybe we should, which questions are we?
yeah, which question?
That's,
Well, read it.
I mean,
Who has time for that?
We've had a lot of questions come through, you know, a lot have been answered, not everything. I guess you feel there's some things that haven't been answered, but, you know, do we keep tabling it, or do we need to just make our decision and keep it moving?
I know with the questions, I guess, Jack and Scott, I mean, with the questions that we had before and everything, I know there wasn't a lot of communication, but with this, everything they sent back, I mean, the modifications reduced considerably. Is there still a lot of open questions that you guys are looking at? I know we're still talking about the property and not having a plan on it. Is there other things that we're missing here?
I think everything is outlined in the staff report. It's kind
Okay.
of the summation of where we are at this point.
Gotcha.
I mean, definitely compared to September's or February's meeting, or March's, excuse me, to now, like a lot of things that we've had major issues with have been adjusted and is pulled within comprehensive plan. Yes, there are a few things that still need to be answered though. So finding the proper course of action for that is difficult.
Did you have something you wanted to add real quick?
I did. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Uh,
You're still sworn in, so you're fine.
I was gonna say, do I need to? Two things. One is, if there are any outstanding, I believe we have answered through our submittal and through the staff report the questions that we were asked. I believe there might be some outstanding issues or questions that cannot be answered at this time because there's more detail that has to go to them, i.e. detailed stormwater calculations or something like that. But if there is a question that is on someone's mind that you know that you don't feel like has been answered, I would be more than happy to attempt to answer it now. That said, I guess in terms of making, I believe I have the right, Scott, as the applicant to request a decision. We have tabled this quite a few times. I don't know that we can, I think we've adjusted all that we can adjust. There are 5 divergences. I think I went through why, 2 of those relate to the sign, 1 relates to street trees, which is the same divergence we went through on Heron Manor and got approved. And the other one's for stormwater, again, I went through that, why that's necessary. The other ones are cul-de-sacs, cul-de-sac lengths, so those are the 5. We've talked about them. I guess what I would request is not to be tabled, that a decision at this point in time. I don't think we're going to present anything a month from now or 2 months from now that is going to differ wildly in any way, shape, or form from what you see on the screen.
Fair enough, appreciate that. We understand where they stand. Remember that if we do make a motion, I need to have it as it is, to be approved, and then you can vote yea or nay, whichever way you choose. If you make a motion, it is to approve it, and then we can vote on it. So,
With the current divergences, does anyone have any issues with those?
I don't, I think in terms of our notes and questions, we don't have to put in the tree lines, cause he answered that, and that's in a part of our staff report's question, so we're okay, we don't have to have any amendments. Is there any amendments that people would like to see in there? Okay with that?
Well, I would also say, if anyone has an issue with something that's not a divergent, but just in general?
I have an issue with school overcrowding. I have an issue with traffic hazards that are already existing, and this will just add to it. I have an issue with the original code being, the original agriculture, they want it, let's see, it's medium low density, currently, zoned medium low density residential. And so the minimum, it's supposed to be, lot sizes are, supposed to be what?
I think they've met all that. Have they not met all that now?
Well,
On the lot sizes?
no, the original minimum was what? Is supposed to be, what, an acre per house?
So right now, it should be, under RID 7, it should be 2 acre minimum lot size.
2 acre minimum lot size, and they're, so, no. To me, it's a no.
But wouldn't the R20 match across the street?
R20 would be 20,000 square foot lots. So if we do the calculation on the density that if this were rezoned to R20, the number of lots they could get in equates to the same they have here, but that's based on a cluster design rather than a non-cluster design. So density R20 meets the density for this plan.
Right, at non-cluster, right?
Correct.
Density is the same house.
Correct.
But it's the same zoning as on the west side of Summit. R20?
West side across the street, I believe, is a planned development district. I don't know what the minimum lot sizes across the street are offhand.
I mean, I think some of the issues we have is the reason why council was doing the moratorium to begin with, because this is kind of that last one beforehand.
Do we send it to council, let them know?
Cleveland Avenue, using that for an emergency route. I mean, that right there, I don't see, I'm surprised the fire department approved that, but
Well, they did. I mean,
I know.
they did, so.
I know.
I mean, they probably already accessed homes that are down through there anyway,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and that would.
But
my
with the
understanding-
traffic that's on that road,
True, but to my understanding, it won't only be used if the main entrance is somehow incapacitated.
yeah. Anyway, that's not my main issue.
I understand. No, and,
So are you just looking for somebody to make a motion?
make a motion and we can, yes.
We have the standard for the motion.
The standard for the
We need
motion
to
with
read through that whole
the,
thing?
with the modifications and
Okay,
everything, that's
okay.
it, yes.
So I'd like to make a motion I move to recommend approval of application number DON 19-003 pursuant to section 1255.19 of the Pataska Code with the following modifications that are listed. Union, we read all this.
No. All right, we have a motion from Robert. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Darren. Any discussions on that motion? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Epperson?
Yes.
Mr. Bagaro?
No.
Mr. Davis?
Abstain.
Mr. Truax?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
No.
Ms. Rogers?
No.
Okay. It has failed.
Correct, 3 yes. I mean, 3 no, 2 yes.
3 times 2 yeses, okay.
So the next step is that it goes within 30, or excuse me, at a minimum of 30 days, then it will go to council for a public hearing, and that'll be the night of the first reading in the rezoning process.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everybody that come in for that. All right, moving along. Next, under new business, is the final plan amendment FP 19-005. Scott?
Thank you, sir. The applicant and owner are Pataska Retail LLC. The location is 7200 to 7256 Hazelton Etna Road. This is the commercial portion of the property, so it's about almost 6 acres. It's a planned development district, and the request is approval and amended final plan for the retail portion of Heritage Town Center. So Heritage Town Center is located here on 310. The nursing home, here's the retail portion of the property. So this was rezoned in 2003 to a planned development district. It was required by the applicant in 2017, and they went through and amended the final development plan at that time. The retail portion, which is sub-area D of that plan, was amended to include permitted and conditionally permitted uses of the general business district. So the proposed amendment is to add, and this is in quotes, tap rooms with on-site brewing into the development text. The way the NAICS code reads for the general business district, it classifies those as, quote, drinking places. Those are not permitted in the general business district. The applicant's intent is to limit the other uses that could be permitted under that NAICS code umbrella. So that would include bars, taverns, nightclubs, etc. Their intent is to say, we don't want any of those. They're very specific to say it's a tap room and only with on-site brewing. The other request for the amendment is to include a patio adjacent to the northern end of the retail building along State Route 310 that's right adjacent to the former bank. This patio would be approximately 420 square feet, and they're back for this because it was not included in the original final plan amendment in 2017. So here's a visual representation of the property. Here's the former bank drive-through. They're just looking to extend a patio potentially around the corner. It will not impede traffic to this location. And here's a rendering. I know it's hard to read here, but this is the overhang, so the patio would wrap around, and this is where the sidewalk is along the front, along 310, or the frontage along 310, excuse me. So planning and zoning has no concerns. The only concern came from the utility department that indicated that if this were to be used for a tap room with on-site brewing, a backflow prevention device must be installed. So surrounding properties, north, local business, that's vacant. East is planned development district, and that's farmland. South is planned development district, and that's a nursing home. And west, also planned development district, which is currently vacant. So modifications, should the Planning and Zoning Commission choose to approve the applicant's request, the following modification may be considered. The applicant shall provide a revised development text and plan pages reflecting the final plan amendments. I would be happy to answer any questions.
With the utility department statement, that will be covered underneath the final documentation?
That's correct.
Okay. So there'd be nothing else that we need to add?
That's correct.
Robert, start here again. Charles?
Does the Mexican restaurant there have alcohol, serve alcohol?
I believe they do.
Are they general business?
It's a restaurant. They're classified as a restaurant, so that's permitted. But since the proposed, or what they're calling the tap room with on-site brewing would not have food, then it would be classified under the drinking places, which include bars, taverns, nightclubs, etc. So they wanted to take those, if it's strictly a bar, take those out of a possibility and just focus on the tap room concept. So since they don't have food, it can't be considered a restaurant under the code.
So they're not gonna be serving alcohol or anything? Or-
At the tap room?
Yeah.
Yeah, from my understanding, if this were to go through, they would have they brew their beer on site, and then you come in and have a glass of beer.
What else would they have going on there?
I don't know offhand. This is all the information I have, is that's what it would be.
Is this for the entire building?
It would just be, at any time, if, let's say, Rusty's went out of business and that space became vacant, then a tap room could be permitted at that location. So arguably, it would be permitted throughout the commercial portion of the property, but from what I understand, their focus is just on the vacant former bank location.
The former bank. And then the quilt people went in beside Rusty's, correct?
Correct. It's my understanding that both buildings are completely full except for this one location. There's a tenant in each space.
It opens up for a bar, basically.
It would not be a bar as as one would consider, where you could go in and get different types of beer or wine or liquor. It would focus it that it has to be a tap room and they have to brew their beer on site. Anything else,
Specific.
very specific, because they didn't want to include any of those other options.
Which is really no different than.
Have some frozen pizza.
I'm not understanding the concept of what they're doing there. They're just gonna brew beer, they're gonna have people come in and drink beer.
It's a tap room.
It's
The
a
tap
bar, without food. Just belly up to the bar. I don't understand the concept. Is there anyone here to represent?
I believe so.
Okay, maybe that'll help.
You ready?
Yes, please. State your name and
Mike Reeves, I'm an engineer with Kimley Horn, 2400 Corporate Exchange Drive, Suite 120, Columbus, Ohio.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I am here, I am a civil engineering consultant for Wilcox Communities, who is the overall owner of the parent development. Jonathan Wilcox, who has presented here before, was unable to attend tonight, so I am assisting him to try to help answer any questions. But yeah, the general intent is there is a potential tenant who is looking to lease this space, but as kind of digging into the existing code, they are a brewer, and all they do is brew beer, and that did not fall under the current category as restaurant. So what was needed is the version of the development text to allow for an on-site brewery. And so they would be brewing beer, and they would have, you'd have the ability to purchase their beer on site. They'd also like to have the patio option so that they could have outdoor seating in nice weather, and they want to use the existing drive-through as so they have a covered patio as well, so that people could still sit outside if there was rain or something going on. They have additional, obviously, as you're taking out the drive-through lanes, you now have additional pavement area, which is the proposal for the expanded parking, and then there would also be room should they ever have, if someone who wanted to lease a space ever had a on-site food truck that could come in and serve food for a short period of time and then leave overnight. There is that additional area near the drive-through that would not take up any other parking spaces or anything like that.
So they will have food.
They will not have
Maybe a food truck.
So the patio is just for sitting outside and
People wanna have a beer.
drinking beer.
Yes.
No food involved. Potentially, no
Correct.
food involved.
Yes.
So it's a bar. Kind of, without the food.
It's a sit-down drive-through.
It's a bar that
With
just
the tap.
sells on-site made beer only. There's no liquor or nothing else.
Do you only sell the beer that's being made right there?
I don't know for certain if that is the case.
What's the potential hours?
I mean, I think it would be similar to any other restaurant, but I don't have the hours because, you know, it's not determined who the tenant would be that would occupy the space. Individual business owner would set the hours after they've opened the establishment.
What are the hours for that zone? You know? Scott?
Off the top of my head, I do not.
That's my only question, Scott.
So the zoning district does not dictate the hours that can operate.
What are those hours? That's what I'm looking at right now.
And there is nothing in the code standardizes hours for operation of a business.
So a bar is not allowed in this area normally? General business?
General business, a bar as established under the NAICS code that has the umbrella of bar, tavern, nightclub, tap room, is not permitted. So from my conversations with the applicant, he says, I don't want a bar, nightclub, tavern. It's like I'm, talking to a potential tenant. This is how they operate. I just want to focus just on that. That you couldn't go into this location and beer, wine, liquor, things like that. It's focused just on brewed beer.
They're brewing their beer and they're selling it.
So would this be similar to, in concept, to like Brewdog or Kindred Brewery in Gahanna?
It would be, it'd be similar to those. Like obviously Brewdog has a full service restaurant with it, but Kindred, I believe, is the one I'm thinking of, an actual brewing when they were still open. They only brewed beer on site. They did not have food options. There's quite a few others. I know when Lineage Brewing in Clintonville first opened, they didn't have any on-site food. Seventh Son Still, which is probably one of the largest breweries in Columbus now, North High, all of those have followed this business model of they brew beer and that's what they stick with, and then they'll occasionally have a food truck come to serve food. But someone like Seventh Son, they recently expanded. They were having so much success with this business model of just focusing on the beer and not worrying about the food component.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this. I've seen it's the new thing for millennials. They go to these tap rooms and sample the beers.
Kindred, if you're not familiar, is on, I think it's Morrison and Hannah. Right as you turn right, if you're heading west from the airport, it's going to be on your right, across from those apartments, down past the right.
Thank you. I didn't get any requests, but I did see a hand. If you want to speak, you can come on up and speak and raise your right hand.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Thank you. Teresa Rodeback, 5437 Columbia Road, Southwest, Pataska, Ohio. And this is part of the agritourism movement, and we do already have 6 in the county. And the CVB, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, actually has a tour of microbreweries in Licking County. So it does kind of fit in the overall future planning of what the millennials like.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a son-in-law, he does it all the time. That's just what they do. Okay.
Hoorah for the millennials.
Yeah.
But we have a code, and if we deviate from the code for this area, then we have to do that for other. So I personally think we have enough beer establishments, or other areas where they could put this and be within the code. So for me, I don't mind them extending the patio, putting a patio there, great, but it's a no for me, but that's my opinion on that.
Any other discussions?
No opinion on my
Not,
hoorah.
are we ready to make a?
No disrespect to the millennials.
You already have
but-
something very similar, or like literally in the same parking
Yes,
lot.
you do.
That does, just because they have food, it makes it different. And it was already clearly stated that it's going to be strictly put to a tap room that sells on-site brewed stuff.
Mhm.
So, I don't know. I know a lot of people in the city always talk about wanting something different or new or this or that. Or, this is an option that's coming to us, which has been stated around the county, something that's been
Mhm.
established. But I do understand your point, Amy. There may be a location that we don't have to deviate from that. But I mean,
I just don't know why we have codes. If we just keep,
Well, that's what we're here for, though, is
I
when
know.
there is codes
To
that
make
are
sure it's
being
inside.
questioned, or someone wanting to change.
Does this go to council?
It will not. So this amendment is property specific just to this.
Just to this property.
Just to this commercial, this commercial center, property specific.
And then we can decide if we feel it fits this property. I mean,
I know.
there's other things, like, I understand what you're saying, but if someone comes in someplace else and we don't think it fits, then we have the right to say it doesn't fit that property.
But we also
It's a
do make
decision.
deviations for different things all the time, depending on law specific things.
Exactly.
So they're also having an area for food trucks, correct? I
There,
mean, it would
there will be an area
independent-
that,
it would be an
it's independent
route.
from the parking lot,
You
yes.
also have Rusty's, which is just moving in right there.
On the other side,
On the
yeah,
other side.
yes.
So they'll have the outdoor patio area. I'm assuming you can bring food.
Very-
Kind of like the thing like the Thurman's to go.
Right.
Thurman's to go feeds the, whatever the bar
Yeah,
is
the
next
bar
to it.
beside it, yes.
So it can enhance some of the business in that district too,
Mhm.
by having that there. I'm a fan. So,
Well, are we,
I move to approve an amendment to the final plan for application FP 19005 pursuant to section 1255.14D of the Pataskala Code with all listed modifications.
have a motion? We have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion? Roll?
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Ms. Rogers?
No.
Mr. Epperson?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
No.
Mr. Truax?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
yes.
Okay, that passes. Moving on down the line, and that one just is, that goes nowhere then, right? That just.
This was the final approval
Final
or deny
approval.
was held with planning board.
Okay. Okay. Next is B, the code amendment for application ZON 19-006. Scott?
Thank you, sir. So the applicant's the city of Pataskala. This would be a code amendment. So the proposed code amendment would add chapter 1296 of the Pataskala Code, and this would be the residential appearance standards. So the purpose of this is to increase quality of neighborhoods, promote architectural appearance, encourage an aesthetically pleasing residential environment, promote durable quality materials that will last. It outlines minimum material standards, and this could be roofs, window trim, finished building materials, etc. And it also outlines how to incorporate that into new homes. So this would apply to any new home in a major subdivision. So that would be a platted subdivision such as we saw tonight with the proposed Stage Point. It would also apply to any home that was constructed under these standards within a platted subdivision or major subdivision, excuse me. So at the time, should these pass, we say today, and 10 years down the line, a home that was constructed under these standards, once it's put on a sun porch, they'll still have to meet these standards. This does not apply to any existing home in a platted subdivision or any essentially existing home in the city of Pataskala constructed prior to the effective date of these regulations. They are the minimum standards. They can't deviate from the standards. An applicant could, however, this would need to be approved as part of a planned development district ordinance as adopted by council. So the development committee took a look at these. The initial concept came up in August of this year. The development committee reviewed draft standards and a visual depiction of the architectural terms and the concepts on September 16th. There was an updated draft that they reviewed at September 30th, at which time they indicated they wanted to see this continue through the code amendment process. We received no comments from other departments or agencies. No potential modifications are offered. I would be happy to answer any questions. With your staff report, there was about a 80-page PowerPoint presentation that went over the architectural terms and concepts with visual representations of each. I could go through that, but I'd prefer that if there was any questions, I do have that slideshow available, that we could go through that instead.
The only comment I would have, if you don't mind.
No, please,
Sorry.
go ahead.
It says residential appearance standards. To me, that's too broad. It needs to be for new homes specifically, because that's what it's about. So, because our other code, the rest of our code is more specific to what's existing, which we all know some modifications need to be made for that, correct? I mean, we've been discussing that. So if I don't have any problems with this, any of this, except that the the description of the standard says residential appearance standards, and it's not for all residential homes, it's for just new homes. So I think it should clarify that in its code name. Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
It does, but if you go to the applicability section of this code, of the proposed code amendment, it will outline to what it applies to. So if you go through the code, go to applicability, you'll see here's what it applies to.
Is it gonna add a lot more variances?
It will not add any variances because you're not permitted to do so, because the only way it could go through is a divergence as part of a planned development district, but it's required that they demonstrate how they meet the purpose of these appearance standards. So it can't be, I don't want to do that. It would have to be, I want to deviate, here's why. So if there was a particular theme of a subdivision, for example, if we do X, it won't meet our theme of Y. So it's up to the applicant to demonstrate reasonable cause as to why they can't follow these standards.
Can I ask something?
Yes, please, go ahead.
If there are new homes built in the, I don't know that there would be an ability to in the historic area. Or is there any, if there were new homes to be built, we don't have any kind of design code for the historic district, right?
That's correct.
And so if we had new homes going up in the historic district, they would have to meet this standard?
They would not.
No.
They would not.
Okay.
It would just be if a new subdivision came in.
I meant a new subdivision. But
Yes.
I don't know that there's room for
Yeah,
that.
there's really, I know what you're saying, but
But if somebody wanted to buy a block of homes and tear them down and build new down the road, they could, and then they wouldn't,
They would not need to
they
meet
would
these
not have
standards.
to comply with what's existing around them.
That's correct. Well, that's correct. So he has no residential standards for downtown.
So, I mean, how can we fix that?
This is really basic, isn't it? And then if you don't apply, this is why, and you can get around it.
Correct. They
If
would
you
have
a
to.
good reason.
They would have to demonstrate that they meet the purpose of the section in terms of why. Well, I don't want to do X. Well, why?
Did the city pay a lot for this?
For the study? No, it was done in-house. Thank you, Mr. McGowan. But the intent was to keep it relatively basic and not, unnecessarily cumbersome. That a lot of the concepts are easy to achieve.
it keeps a house with no windows or anything, so people aren't looking at a big wall.
Correct. For example, it talks about a blank elevation, that you would need 2 architectural features per story. So if you put 4 windows, 2 on top, 2 on bottom, you meet the
How does that
requirement.
work in a cluster housing? You have one 6 feet away.
You would,
I
and
know,
that
you
might
stare
deter
at someone else's.
cluster housing.
Hence the reason to squash cluster.
Just say, oh, cluster housing, so we won't put the windows there. Is that a good reason?
That is not a good reason.
Well, also you see the chimneys, like shed type chimneys, which are very common.
Mm-hmm.
No one, I mean, you'd have to go up.
Correct. It would have to be a masonry chimney.
And then the facade of the basement also would need to be trimmed up, I guess. is the word.
Correct. If there's more than, I believe it's 12 inches of exposed foundation, then it would have to have the water table.
Mhm.
It kind of gives us an opportunity to have a little bit more character into
Correct.
what we're looking.
That was the intent through development committee.
Which is nice. I mean, you look at something like New Albany, they kind of got the colonial style with everything that's built.
Exactly.
That would be a much more involved regulation.
Right, but I'm just saying it's like an
Yes.
example of like a theme for a city.
Correct,
so to
correct.
speak. Oh, yeah. Which they have everywhere. Now, would this include, this is just design, right? I may be confused, but was there like a maintenance guideline as well?
This would not be involved with the property maintenance or anything like that.
Who makes the judgment calls on that?
Staff. Although this would come at the time that the homes are built, they submit a site plan, we would go through the criteria and check those to make sure that they met those. This would come with a zoning permit for a new house.
So if like a builder came in with like, for example, Fisher with their list of homes or Maple Street or whatever, like you guys would have to review each home and make sure that they all qualify and tell them which ones are good and which ones aren't?
That's correct.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed, and it kind of keeps the project housing look away, because you can't have repeated houses right along. They have to give it some character. That being said,
Does this go to council?
Yeah, it would go to council.
Is there a quantity of homes?
In terms of what they would apply to, it would apply to, if we were doing a subdivision that has 100 homes, it would apply to all 100.
But you've got on there major development, or major subdivision, but it says here the creation of 6 or more lots.
Correct. A major subdivision involves the creation of 6 or more lots and or the opening or widening of a road. So if you have to create a road to get those lots, it would apply to a major that would be a major subdivision. Then it would have to be platted. So essentially a major subdivision is a platted subdivision.
Okay, so it's not just 6 houses make a major
6
subdivision,
houses make a
because that was my concern. That didn't sound very major.
Now, if there was a situation where there was some sort of business or frontage stores attached to the platted subdivision, would the standards apply to that as well?
It would not. Just to the new homes.
So basically, I'm sorry. The only thing we need to, my concern is the historic area. We don't really have a definition of what constitutes our historic district, and we need to get that done. Is that what you're telling me?
In terms of the historic district,
Mhm.
I believe in the code as it relates to signs, the old village is outlined in the sign code, but that does not translate over into any residential appearance standards.
So, going forward, if we adopt this, how can we make sure that that area is preserved for the future and not affected by this? How soon would we need to get that done? Or what would we need to do?
That would be another code amendment to outline appearance standards for the old
for
village.
the old village.
Can I request that you do that?
I can do that.
Okay.
Give me a sec.
What'd you say?
Give me a sec.
Second, all right. We'll do that, all right, that's all I have.
Any other questions or any other? Okay. We ready to make a motion? If so, I'll make a motion that we recommend the approval of application ZON-19-06 pursuant to section 1217.10 of the Pataskla Code, and we did not have any modifications to be recommended for approval for City Council.
Second.
Seconded by Dustin. Discussion? Roll?
Mr. Truax?
Yes.
Ms. Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. Everson?
Yes.
Mr. Begarow?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
No.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
That passed, and that will go to council then.
That's correct. A minimum of 30 days before it can go to council.
Okay. Moving on. Okay, going on to C, the rezoning application of ZON 19-007, Country Time Land Specialist. Jack?
Like you said, this is ZON-19-007. Location of this one is at 10530 Mill Street Road. Current acreage is 21.42 acres. It's currently zoned agricultural, and the applicant is requesting a recommendation of approval pursuant to section 1217.10 of the Pasco Code to allow for a rezoning from AG agricultural to R87 medium low density residential. So if you look here, is the area map of the property. Mill Street running along the south of the property here, and the property outlined in yellow. So again, that property is 21.42 acres. There's currently two accessory structures on the property, a 528 square foot garage and a 3,180 square foot barn that are located near the middle of the property with an access drive on the Mill Street Road. Most of the acreage is utilized for farmland. Existing tree stands are present on the west side, and a creek runs through the property from east to west, which feeds into the Muddy Fork River, which is adjacent to the subject parcel to the north, and is currently owned by, that adjacent parcel to the north is owned by the Licking Park District. So a small portion of this property in the northwest corner is in the floodplain. So you can look here, here is the existing conditions. You can see the sort of accessory structures here. Here's the course of the river approximately, not actually in the parcel, but just directly adjacent to the north of it. And here is the small portion in the northwest that is in the floodplain. So the proposal is to rezone the property from agricultural to R87, medium low density residential, and it is the applicant's intention to further split this property into 6 residential lots that will meet the R87 minimum standards. So here is the sort of concept plan that was submitted by the applicant for these proposed lots. You can see we got 6 home sites here with the sort of potential home locations. They wouldn't be, have to put these houses here. They do have the setbacks on here, but this is sort of the potential home sites that they identified and the potential driveways for those 6 lots. So in the narrative statement that was supplied by the applicant, they believe that even though the proposed rezoning would allow the area to be developed, it would keep with the rural character of Mill Street. They believe it would be harmonious in appearance to nearby properties. They also believe there would be no disturbance or hazard created that could inhibit future uses, or there would be no need for the community to bear an excessive cost an hour in the future. And they also stated that the future lots will conform to the requirements of the R87 district. So following a recommendation, as with all rezonings, the application will be considered by City Council for final approval pursuant to section 1217.13. So as part of our review, the planning and zoning staff would like to offer the following comments. So the future land use map designates this property as medium density residential. The comprehensive plan from 2006 identifies medium density residential as a density between 2,000 square feet, or about a ½ acre per lot, to 2 acres per lot, depending on availability of central sewer water. So the applicant's proposing lots ranging from, at minimum, 2.23 acres to a larger 2.8 acre, with one larger 6.65 acre lot. So therefore, the proposed rezoning would not be in line with the comprehensive plan. However, the density is only just slightly below what is outlined by the current plan. So, pursuant to section 1229.05, the minimum requirements of the R87 zoning district are a minimum lot size of not less than 2 acres and a minimum width of 200 feet throughout. That's starting at the right of way and following the lot all the way back. It can't decrease from 200 feet. And from the concept plan submitted, the applicant can meet these requirements. The final lot size and width shall be verified by staff before approval of the applicant's lot split applications. And the city engineer offered the following comment: driveway spacing shall be spaced not less than 200 feet from each other pursuant to section 1117.12. So the surrounding properties, they're all zoned agricultural. To the north, we have the Muddy Fork River, which is owned by the Licking Park District. That parcel, I guess, is, and there's a further city-owned parcel to the north. To the east, a single-family home and some more farmland. To the south, single-family homes and farmland, and to the west, single-family homes and farmland. So modifications, should the Planning and Zoning Commission choose to approve the applicant's request, the following modification may be considered. The applicant shall address all comments from the Planning and Zoning staff and the city engineer, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Jack. Dustin, we'll start with you. Any questions for Jack?
Would there be any restrictions from, Columbia Road access on that 1 6-acre lot?
On the 6-acre lot, no, they would have frontage on the Columbia.
Just in case, just thinking if they didn't put it off of Mill Street for that one lot.
Excuse me, yeah, they would have frontage on the Columbia. I don't believe they would have access on the Mills, or, Columbia
Okay,
here.
so right?
Can you go along with the lot breakdown? Does that one front on the Columbia? Or was
This
it?
one here?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, there's houses on
Okay.
Yeah, they would all have frontage on Mill Street, and that's where all the driveways.
Okay. It's kinda hard to see from here.
Darren?
No question.
Ann?
Where were they planning on having, septic and wells? Or were they going to tap into?
They did not indicate that on their application. I believe, but don't quote me on it, that if there is a water or sewer line on Mill Street, the sewer district or task utilities will require them to hook into it, but again, don't quote me on that.
There is,
Is there one there? Do you know?
every,
Off the top of my
in
head. I
that
do not
district,
know.
I believe, there's no, it's all well and septic until you get to, just a little bit east of that, I believe. But I don't know for sure. So they would have to tap into that.
If it's there, I believe they
And
would.
there might be a home or two in between there that
There maybe even the applicant himself would be able to give more insight into that.
they may
whether
require those
hooking into
homeowners to switch over, which would not be right. So we kinda need more information.
Okay. Into that in regards to whether or not they'd be using well and septic, or would
Yeah.
they be hooking into
Well,
septic?
And
sewer
if
water?
any of the homeowners along that route
I
would
think
be.
they're here, so we can ask them when they.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
They're here.
we'll go to that.
Alright.
Charlie, any questions for?
What about price point for the houses?
That will be.
That'd be a question, yeah.
Okay.
Good question. I have nothing else. Go ahead.
It says proposed 6 lots, but your proposed lot picture there has 7.
Oh, excuse me. You would be correct, there would be 7 lots.
Just which way it needed to go.
Yeah, 7 lots. And,
So it means major.
with the 7 lots, if it's rezoned to R87, you have to have that 200 feet frontage, and that's about all you could fit on there.
Okay. I was just curious, was it gonna be 7 or 6?
Yeah, sorry, that was
It
a
happens.
mistake on my part.
Next, is anybody here from Country Time? Go ahead, come on up, please. Raise your right hand to be sworn in, and then name and address, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
I'm Mark Graham, the owner of Country Time, 3451 Cincinnati Zanesville Road, Southwest Lancaster, Ohio. All right. Yeah, I guess I can address the questions. It's
Could you
planned-
speak more loudly, please?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are planning well and septic. We talked about price point of the homes. We're not home builders. We're land developers. So we're just a country time. We're a country land specialist. You know, we try to develop rural home sites and recreational properties and such. It was mentioned earlier about the development over on Havens Corners. That was also a country time where we sold lots from a little over 2 acres to about 8 acres. 8 acres over there. So you know, our type of development is to allow people the space. You know, if they want to maintain that rural country character, build a custom home. So we'll only be selling the land to end users. Generally, we don't sell to actual builders. We sell to the individual that has a dream of having a home in the country. You know, and then they take that step further. Sewer and water is not available right there. It's down the street. And then as far as the driveways, yeah, we can absolutely accommodate that. no sight distance problems out there, and the property is really too shallow to have any high density type development to work there. So it seems like, when we found it, it seemed like a good fit for what we do. Currently with the ag zoning, we'd only be able to do 2 tracks, and 2 10+ acre tracks, and that actually doesn't fit the neighborhood. If you look at all the homes out there, they're on about 3 acre lots or around there. So we're just trying to fit with the same character of the neighborhood and provide a place for someone to build a home in the country.
Thank you. Ann, do you have any more questions or any? Charlie, I know you had one about the price. Well, doesn't really know, so, okay.
That's it.
I mean, I could tell you that, the lot pricing, we'll have to see when we get there, but, if you use the Havens Corners as an example of what, that was, went from 115,000 to about 180, something like that for the lot. So then you can kind of extrapolate what type of home would go in there.
Darren?
No question.
I will say this, it is nice to see something with larger lots, thank you, come across. We do have some speakers that would like to speak, so thank you. You can go ahead and step back. I have, what is it, Richard Ron and Donnell Scott and Jonathan Scott. What's that?
I apologize, I didn't know there was more than one Scott.
Okay, Donnell Scott, Jonathan Scott, and John Harmon. If you'd all raise your hands, and we'll get you sworn in real quick.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, let's start with John.
Which John?
John Harmon. Harmon.
John Holman, 11015 Mill Street, Pataskala. I served on the Planning and Zoning Board for 4 years after the merger, and then did 3 more years on the Board of Zoning Appeals. I served on the County Farmland Preservation Task Force in the 90s, which evolved into the County Agriculture for Tomorrow Committee, authorized by the County Commissioners. The functions of this committee are now handled by professional staffers at the Licking County Soil and Water District. A little history of the site I think is appropriate. This has been a productive farm for over a century. It was a dairy until it was made an all-grain farm about 40 years ago. 3 generations of the Tyler and Powell families have lived on this farm. It's prime farmland. Soybeans were harvested just a few weeks ago. Context of the neighborhood. On the corner of Mill and Columbia is Clearview Farm, 217-acre ag easement donated to the Ohio Department of Agriculture in 2001 for farmland preservation. There are 3 smaller farms, 12 acres or less, belonging to the Neese and Scott and Kroll families. Several rural residences of varying lot sizes, mostly from the 1950 to 1960 era, are interspersed. The rezoning application. When the applicant purchased this tract, they knew it was, number 1, zoned agricultural. It's been in an ag district, and it's under CAUV. They knew it was productive. It's prime farmland by history of cropping. Partly, and part of it is in a defined floodplain. This floodplain will likely increase due to global warming and increased runoff from upstream development. I urge this board to deny R87 rezoning, maintain agricultural zoning. The applicant can still subdivide this tract into 2 mini farms of at least 10 acres.
According to the American Farmland Trust, America loses 3 acres of farmland every minute. That is brought about precisely by rezonings like this proposal. 20 acres here, 50 acres there. It adds up to tremendous numbers across the country. The value of prime farmland for local food production for the Columbus metropolitan area will only increase considering energy constraints and the myriad challenges to our current industrial agriculture system related to global warming. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Watt?
Whoops. Thank you.
Thank you, committee. Richard Wall with the Lincoln Park District. Part of our conservation efforts are to preserve conservation areas like the riparian corridor on the Buddy Creek that this gentleman was just talking about. So I was here to find out what low to medium density housing really was, and 6 lots, and we need access to ours so that we want walking paths back through there eventually so that we can use that as a natural park area. And I believe the upper right corner that the city of Pataskala owns, is that designated for a parkland? Do you know?
I don't believe it is currently. I think in the last comprehensive plan, it kind of had that general area identified as parkland, but it's not parkland currently.
Is it farmed?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I think it's mostly vegetated.
So the Lincoln Park District would be interested in working with the city of Pataskala to develop that whole area into a parkland. It's an awesome wetland area, riparian corridor, walking paths, and try to preserve it for what it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Donnell Scott?
Donnell Scott, 10397 Mill Street. I am the property owner to the right. I have 6 acres. I have absolutely no problem with new neighbors. I love the farmland, but I'd be perfectly happy to have it developed correctly. I have 6 dogs, and hopefully whoever moves next door won't have a problem with them either. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. And Jonathan Scott?
Jonathan Scott, 10729 Mill Street Avenue. Well, to start, after I got back from the war, me and my wife's been since 2008 looking for the perfect house. And we've actually lived in Pataskala for a little while now until it was switched over to Etna, right off of 40, which was a fun surprise. Then we found a house, and we literally spent every dime that we had saved up fighting 6 months to get this house. And whereas I'm not opposed to straight development, I am opposed to rezoning. My family's been farm generations for the last 100 years. We own 4,000 acres in Adams County, stretching all the way to Kentucky. I believe very strongly that it's in our best interest to keep it agricultural, which does not really limit them. It's just like my house. I have 5 acres. I would have loved to have a bigger farm, but unfortunately the injuries from the war prevent that. I'm not a stranger to that. But I believe that if they were to keep it with larger plots and do maybe only 4 houses, it would keep to what they want. It would also keep with the surrounding area. It also allow for everyone to be able to enjoy agricultural. I'm hoping for our farm to actually be operational next year. Unfortunately, this year I had 10 surgeries to correct issues, which prevented me from getting it done this year, but we're hoping to be operational next year. And I want to keep living in Pataskala. I want to live here for the next 30 years and enjoy everything around us. But I believe that opening the doors to residential at this time whereas may benefit certain people, I think it opens the doors for the surrounding area to become just another housing development. I believe very much with John that this is prime farmland. I mean, there's not a lot of places that you can call prime farmland anymore. And I feel very strongly that we should take this into consideration. I'm all for making micro farms. They're actually very useful, especially for the surrounding community. John's farm especially is very proven to be able to support the surrounding community with everything that he produces. I believe that the council should allow this to stay agricultural and to allow our community to grow, but within reason. I think that is very important for our community as a whole. I believe that development for residential is very well built elsewhere. That land, when it rains, everything floods, my property including. I lose half my backyard every time it rains, which is a fun thing that we found out, but it doesn't really affect anything. But I think that the council, I'm asking the council to please consider keeping it agricultural for our future generations. Because there's going to be a time when farmland and agricultural properties don't exist. And I think for Pataskala to stay with its character is very important for us to take this into account when we're thinking of future generations. Because we're not thinking 5 years down the road. I'm thinking 50 years down the road. So,
Time. And thank you for your service too.
Yes,
thank you very much.
That's the names that I had. I don't know if the builders had anything they wanted to, offer the comments or anything. Yes, ma'am, do you want to speak? Please. Again, just state your name and address, that's it.
Teresa Rodeback, 5437 Columbia Road Southwest. I also am a vet. I served in the United States Air Force. And excuse me, I'm a horrible speaker. I get very nervous. We moved here from Mount Vernon, Ohio, to be closer to our work. We currently own a 19-acre farm and work with a lot of our elders. John has spoke before. I appreciate his testimony, and I would just like to say that I reiterate what he said, and we do want to keep this country in farmland, and we do farm to table at my farm. And so if we can continue to take away our small farms, that people like my husband and I, we won't be able to compete with the land prices. Our taxes have gone up 33%, and that takes away from what we can produce food for our neighbors. So I'd just like you to consider that when you're doing your vote tonight. Thank you.
And again, thank you for your service too. Thank you. Yes, please. You're more than welcome. Come up and have a rebuttal.
It may not need to be said, but if you look at the comprehensive plan, we're actually slightly less dense, than Pataskala was planning for that area to be. And if you look at the agricultural zoning around there, those 3 to 5 acre lots that are around currently, they're in the ag zoning. Those lots couldn't be created the way it is now. And very well could be the home that you found on your 5 acres wouldn't exist if they had to hold it to the 10-acre lot for the home. And when you speak about farmland preservation, I understand the small farms, and we actually encourage that on our 2 to 6 acre lots. There's a lot of gardening, horticulture, a lot of farming can go on in that way, and as can do on a 10-acre lot. But you can allow for that a little bit of slow growth, not the high density growth. And then, given the comprehensive plan, the future land use, we're not trying to get half-acre lots, which is what the comprehensive plan would allow, for half-acre lots. So, we're not going for that proposal. We're actually going for the the lower density of what's planned for the area, and trying to keep it low and rural.
Thank you. sure can, you can ask it, yes.
Dr. John Homan, could I ask you a question?
Please do.
Full disclosure, I live on Mill Street, so this does directly affect me. But if you wanna stand up there, that way you can be on the, you can be on the microphone if you stand there.
Okay.
So the future land use map allows for half-acre lots. And I don't know why that is on, to me, that is, who approved that? So, I'm concerned that down the road, they go ahead and shove houses on quarter-acre lots or half-acre lots, and then it's really dense. And then across the street now, the property across the street, I don't know how many acres are over there that are either up for sale or sold. Do you know?
No, I don't know the acreage involved. You mean on the side where Don
On the
Powell
south
is?
side of Mill Street, directly across from
No,
there.
I don't know. That does back up to our land on the back part though, on the south part. It adjoins our farmland, which is under the ag easement with the Ohio Department of Agriculture.
Yeah. So, currently, what they're proposing is less than what would be allowed in the future land use map. So, we're kinda stuck here with, you know, that, or roll the dice with keeping it agriculture. And I kinda know my fellow commissioners here, I'm not gonna lie, a little bit, but I don't know what their opinions are. So, you know, I have concerns about it being a major development down the road.
Well, I share those concerns, and I think that the point I was trying to make, there are a number of small farms in the area now. These, a lot of the people from the industrial ag section have the slogan, "Get big or get out." I'm sure you've all heard that. I think we're in a great time of change because of global warming. There is no control of global warming in sight, and I think that we're going to see a lot of changes in agriculture and energy use, and having prime farmland, good land, and ability to produce food in proximity to population centers, I think will become much more important. I do not see our farm or any other farms in this area 50 years from now continuing to produce commodities to send abroad, like corn and soybeans. I think it's going to be more centered around local food.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I do have, I can speak for my own property. When it rains, man, it floods. And I'm a half a mile down the road from this property. My neighbors all flood. It's just, it's not a really well draining street at all. So just so you all are aware of that. And then across the street, like I said, the same property owner is selling that property, or I think it may have already sold it, I'm not sure, but I think it's even a larger area. So they're probably looking at developing that too. So it kind of gives you a perspective of future, what to be expecting.
That's the lesser of the two evils.
Yeah, so.
Charlie, you have any questions? No, I know.
That's all I have.
And we will-
I'm next door to that whole thing and I have 6 acres. I don't flood at all.
Okay.
Thank
Yours is
you.
all coming to my house.
Well, you can keep it. I don't. I've been there for 2 years and I don't feel it at all.
Thank you. Robert, you got any discussion on
I just think right now with what they've got, they're still going good size lots. You know, and it does become a risk if it does get rezoned, and also we have developments trying to go in there. So I think this is kind of the lesser of the evils right now.
We did have, I did see a show of hand. Did you want to speak one last time, ma'am? I'll
Yes,
give you
please.
one last opportunity.
I would ask the board if you do, if you are thinking of putting the motion to approve it, that you would put something on there stating that it could be X amount of acres. So when the developer goes to replat, or, you know, if it's replatted, that it can't go ahead and they can't ask for another zoning change. Because if it goes into the medium density, then it could go to a half acres. I do sit on the BZA, and we have seen situations like this where someone says, I want a big country house on 2 acres, but due to the formation of the property, that they can only put their house in one place or the other. And so then they come to the BZA and say, oh, we can't meet your requirements on setback because we have this big drop off in the back. So, you know, if you could put that in your considerations. Thank you.
I did have a question on that, Jack, when you were saying it is 7 lots and they can't change the lot sizes after this, correct? Or
So they're rezoning it now to R87. So any lots that they split out of this would have to meet the R87 minimum standards, that being 2 acres in size and 200 feet at the right of way and continuing all the way back. So at any point the lot wouldn't be able to be any less than 200 feet. So acreage wise, there was a parcel that was like 6.5 acres, but with the lot frontage that is currently there, you wouldn't be able to fit
you wouldn't be able to
another
fit more
lot
in there because
on
there's
there
no access
and
to
be
it.
in compliance with R87. They could attempt to get a variance to maybe squeeze another lot in there, but of course they'd have to go through that process.
Through that process, and then that can be denied or.
Correct.
I think the one thing that really piqued my interest was the parks district behind there and everything. Does that leave accessibility to that?
I was just gonna ask that
There's
question, what would
accessibility
be the accessibility
And
to
I don't know if
that?
you know that, sir. Do you know what the accessibility is to that park district right now?
It's not accessible.
It's not accessible.
So
So
that's
how
why we
would it
wanna,
be?
that's why we wanna work with Pataskla, and that's why I asked about what the future plans were for that property. We own down to Mill Street on the far right-hand side when you're facing north of this property. But it's a steep grade into the muddy fork, and we can't get access.
So it's over there by the Matlack and comes
And
comes
so-
down that ravine.
So we need access somewhere the city has access. That's why there's no access on Columbia, because the city has an access point all the way up on the left-hand side of that property, on the top side. But that would then have to go through city property to come down to get access to ours, and we really would like to have access and be able to develop that. And it's not going to be playgrounds or anything of that nature. It's going to be a nature preserve of sorts, because it does flow.
Thank you. I mean, I am a little concerned with that part. I don't know if my personal opinion, I don't know if I have enough, if we need to get more information from Parks and Recs as to is there gonna be accessibility to that. Yes, sir.
One, like you had mentioned, it's, you know, we're not at right now, we're not proposing a platted subdivision where we have, we're just proposing a zoning zoning change to allow the 2-acre lots. Currently, there's no specific access through this farm to get to that. But to speak a little more, there's the majority of the park's property behind there is actually on the other side of the creek. You know, so if they were looking for ways in, it wouldn't necessarily be through the property we own to get access to that, to develop that as a park, if that makes sense to you.
Okay.
And 2 cents.
Thank you. Any other discussions or questions? Will this go on to city council too, or what's this?
Yes, so as a rezoning, any recommendation of planning and zoning commission would ultimately go to city council.
Okay. Thoughts or questions? Are we ready to? What direction are we looking ahead?
So do you want
We have to make a direction,
recommendation
yes.
for a motion? Okay. I recommend to approve rezoning application number ZON-19-007 pursuant to section 1217.10 of the Pataskala Code. Did we have any modifications that we really concerned with?
I do not know of any. Do we have a second?
Second.
Darren? Roll?
Mr. Bagarelle?
Yes.
Mr. Everson?
No.
Mr. Davis?
No.
Mr. Truax?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Ms. Rogers?
No.
3-3.
3-3.
It has to be the majority.
It has to be majority, so it goes as a no. Okay. Thank you guys very much for your time. Do we want to take a break for a few seconds, or do you guys want to keep going through? We got one left. Push through? Okay. Next Next is D, the replat application of REP-19-002, Scott Waters. Jack, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Location of this one is off of Columbia Road. It's currently on an address parcel, but the parcel number is up there. So the total acreage is 46.39 acres. It's currently zoned agricultural. The request is, the applicant is requesting approval of a replat pursuant to section 1113.48 of the Pataskala Code for 13 lots. Excuse me, it should be 12 lots in the Swinning subdivision and one large unplatted parcel into 3 new parcels. So here's an area map of the total parcels in question. So in altogether, there's 13 parcels that are going to be replatted. 12 of them are small parcels here along Columbia Road, and a larger 39-acre parcel in the back that currently does not have any frontage. So again, 13 parcels total, 12 parcels in the Swinning subdivision. They are lots 8 through 15 and 21 through 24 with frontage on the Columbia Road. They vary in size from 0.562 acres to 0.697 acres. The Swinning subdivision was platted in 1954 with a total of 24 lots and one 39.47 acre landlocked parcel with no frontage onto a public right-of-way. So the majority of this 46.39 acres is currently farmland. Here's what the original plat looked like. It's not clear to read, but it was from 1954, so it didn't scan into the computer very well. These lots here. And then, so the summary is they want to replat, they want to take the 12 existing parcels that are in the subdivision and replat those and also bring in the larger parcel into that subdivision and create 3 lots out of that. So the first, you get lot 1A, 22.315 acres and 272-foot width. 2A is approximately 14 acres with a 252-foot width, and lot 3 with an acreage of 10 and a 270-foot width of the right-of-way. So here is the proposed replat. You've got a long lot 1A here. Lot 2 kind of comes off of Columbia and curves back around here. lot 3 here. So in the narrative statement that was supplied by the applicant, the purpose of the replat is because the existing 12 parcels in the subdivision do not meet the minimum requirements of the ag district and would require several variances in order to build on them. The proposed lots will meet the current ag district requirements of 10-acre minimum lot size and a 250-foot width throughout. As part of our view, planning and zoning department would like to offer the following comments. The ag district requires a minimum lot size of 10 acres and a width of 250 feet throughout. From the information provided, staff believes the proposed replat will meet the minimum requirements of the zoning district. And the proposed replat includes some inaccurate approval blocks. The plat should be revised to include the correct signatures, which are included there in your staff report. The applicant stated in the narrative statement that the replat would be to eliminate the need for variances to build on the existing 12 smaller parcels. So the smaller parcels that are in the subdivision now are also zoned AG agricultural. So you would be able to build on them if you can meet the setbacks of the ag district. However, the setbacks for the ag district are 75 feet from either side and 100 feet from the front and rear. However, the average width of those parcels is only 75 feet. So any structure on one or multiple of the lots would be impossible without first acquiring several variances. And then the Public Service Director commented, so pursuant to section 1113.44F of the Public Service Director has the authority to require easements of 5-foot minimum to be placed upon the property lines of the rear and side yards. However, the Public Service Director has determined that no easements will be necessary. So the surrounding properties are all zoned agricultural. To the north, it's currently a farm field. To the east, we have a farm field and several single-family homes. To the south, more farm field with a couple single-family homes. And to the west, again, farm field with a few single-family homes. Modifications, so should the Planning and Zoning Commission choose to approve the applicant's request, the following modifications may be considered. Number 1 being the replat shall be revised to meet all comments from staff and shall include the required statements. And 2, pursuant to section 1113 of the Pasco Code, the replat shall be recorded within 30 days of the latest signature. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Any questions for staff at this moment? Yeah. Any questions for staff at this moment?
So you're saying that they would actually need some additional variances to build.
If it's left as it is now, they would, but the purpose of replatting
But to replat it, they
is
won't.
to eliminate that need.
Okay, and so would I forget the technical term, when you build a house behind another house, what's that called when it's like it's kind of weird? Because I noticed one of the lots kind of goes behind another house.
Yeah.
Flag lot. Flag?
Flag, thank
Flag lot,
you.
yes.
And so, would that one be okay to build back there?
Yes, it would. So as it's proposed, it would meet the minimum requirements of the ag district and have that 250 feet of frontage and be 250 feet all the way back. It's just, it would start at 250 feet at the right of way, go back, and then more would be in the back essentially. But they would meet the
Potentially,
code.
but they would still have to get, okay. That's all I have.
Darren? We'll go down to you.
No questions.
Charlie?
No questions. I couldn't see the map again on exactly where this is at. I'm just curious.
Yeah. It's Columbia Road here.
So this is south of Mill Street?
It's
Or are we on the north
north
side?
We're on the
of
north
Broad.
side.
North of
Okay.
Broad, yeah.
North and Broad.
That's all I had.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Okay. With that being said, is someone here for Scott Waters to represent?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Scott Walters, 591 Chattagay Drive, Pataskala. And I think Jack covered most of the details on the project, I did want to point out, just reiterate that we're taking 13 parcels, 12 smaller parcels, approximately half acre in size, and then the 39-acre parcel in the back, which none of those would currently meet the agricultural zoning district regulations for lot sizes, and converting those into 3 lots, large lots that are 10, 14, and 22 acres. As was mentioned, they do have the 250 feet of frontage and more than 10 acres, which is the requirement in ag district. So I think we're actually improving the layout of the existing subdivision and bringing it up to the current code regulations for lot sizes. There is not public water and sewer over in that section. And with 5 acres or more in Licking County, you don't have to have a soil test done, but we did have soil testing done and sent it to the health department, and it would be able to approve well and septic on the lots over there. And to answer exactly where this is, it's on the north side of Columbia, just east, just west of Corder Road. You can see Corder Road down in the bottom corner right there. So it's north of Broad Street up in that section. And all these lots, compared to the majority of the other lots in the subdivision, I don't believe any of the other lots in the subdivision are anywhere near 10 acres. I think they're all smaller than 3 acres from when I looked at all of them. I believe at least the majority of them are. I don't think I have anything else to add there unless there's any questions.
Thank you. Dustin, any questions? Darren?
No questions.
Sure?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much. We do have speakers. Linda Scott, Mary McComb, Mark Westbrook, Andrea Renner, and, well, we got Scott. Scott already spoke, so, okay. Please raise your right hand.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Ms. Scott?
My name is Linda Scott, and my address is 5303 Columbia Road. And I just have concerns about the development of that area because, for one thing, we have a lot of water problems too. Water lays all over the land there. And I'm just concerned if they build that up, it could push more water over onto us. And then the water table there seems to be kind of low with low water pressure, and I'm afraid it'll take away from our water that we have currently. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you. Mary McComb?
My name's Mary McCown, and I live at 5303 Columbia Road, Southwest Pataskala. And I'm greatly concerned because I know how things have been over the years with that, and I enjoy having the farmland next to me instead of a bunch of houses all propped in like a bunch of mushrooms growing up. And I'm not particularly, I'll be honest, of having a whole bunch more neighbors. You want them, so we also do it. And I want large, and if anybody does things, I do expect to have a decent, big property, you know, per family. But my great concern is with my water problem, if I go, you know, because whenever they sold the land to Columbus, like through the Jersey, I remember up through there, it made a difference on mine. And those of us who has artesian wells, I'm only 42 feet down. You figure what 13 homes, or actually 16 homes is going to do to me? Who's going to take care of my water problem where I got water in my house? I'm a retiree, I'm 83 years old, and I don't have the money to be going out and digging a great big thing. So is the guy going to take and provide me with water in my house? It's bad enough I've dealt with flooding in my area all the time, and there's just a short distance that they would just dig it up and go, it would run down towards Pataskla and into the the creek and into to everything else. But they can't find the money to take and do that for me and my neighbors. Cause there's 3 of us that has a real major problem with water. And it comes down off that great big field. And you figure all the houses that's gonna be in there. It's gonna be putting more water on us. The water will get so bad, because even now there's times when it rains so hard that people has to go way across and hope to God that they can make it through the flood there. I know there's a lot of places got flooding here in Pataskla, but you know what? I'm sick and tired of being put on the back burner for everything. And if that guy has the water his way with all those homes, and he's gonna have to provide water for every one of them, what's gonna happen to me? Is he gonna take care of me? That's what I would like to know. I don't think it should be. I just soon had it seen staying as a farmland, because we do need our crops and stuff, and yes, they just got through getting the soybeans. They do soybeans and corn, which I enjoy getting to see every year. But it is all farmland there, and I'd like to see it stay that way. And are you related to John or Dennis?
Yeah.
Which one?
Denny.
Denny?
Dad.
Is he okay, or is he passed away?
He had a stroke, but he's
Huh?
he had a stroke, but he's still with us.
But he's still here. That's good. Yeah, do you know, I worked with the school.
No problem.
But no, I really don't approve of having the homes over there, because I've already got enough problems with water, and like I said, the major problem is what's gonna happen when you get 13, actually 16, he's got 13 and then 3. So there's 16 homes. Water's gotta come from somewhere. And when you guys know anything about artesian wells, there's a lot of things. I mean, your water, they only went 42 feet down, and I had water standing in a 4-foot pipe, 4 feet above the ground. That river underneath just isn't gonna do too good if I lose all my water. What do I do then? So that's why I said I really am not in favor of having the houses there. I mean, when he put it in 3 sections, I thought, oh good, 3 homes, that's it. But it's not 16. It's
Thank
not
you.
16.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Yes.
Just so you know, the replat is to take from 13 homes and make it 3.
What's that?
They're gonna take 13 lots that are existing now and make it 3, so it's a reduction in homes,
I thought he was going to do 16 homes altogether.
just 3.
Just 3.
3 large lots.
Per section, because it's divided into.
Yeah, he's gonna do one 22 acre plus, one 14 plus acre, and one 10 plus acre.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, with an understanding, there's gonna be a whole lot of homes, not lots, put in where one home would be. That's why I come down here, just so I can take my make sure, because I mean,
You're
that's
fine.
a, that's
You're
a lot.
fine.
I gotta think
Just
my
wanted to
life.
ease your mind a little bit. It wasn't gonna be
Thank you.
16. It's 13 to 3.
Well, we just trying to understand it, and it's like, how can we have that many? I said, I ain't gonna have no water whatsoever.
Thank you, Mary.
And I plan on living there until, well, the good Lord takes me home.
Let's hope it's a long time, Mary. Thank you. Mark Westbrook?
Name's Mark Westbrook, 5185 Columbia Road, and we are the 2-acre plat that is the flag property to which you all, I believe, were discussing. The entirety of our east line of our property would be impacted by this. The entire north side of it would be impacted, and very partial on the east or on the west side of things. My concern is this: my wife and I moved out here in 2006. We are Columbus, Ohio transplants. We had wished to be in a quiet neighborhood, and it is very quiet there, I absolutely admit. And knowing that Pataskla does desire to grow, and I understand why that is, we specifically moved out here for the reason to have no neighbors. Essentially, we have one neighbor. The rest of it is field, animals, and my concern would be really more so on the environmental side, probably more so than gaining new neighbors. I don't have a problem with the way the plats are outlined right now, but if they were to be reduced in size, then the concerns for the rezoning in that area and that what all that brings on, specifically to what I just listened to with retired people who are on restricted incomes, and all the taxation and the water lines and all that can bring. It raises a lot of money concerns, you know, to those who do want to come out here and develop. So if the intent really is just to develop for the 3 plats and that is it, then new neighbors isn't such really a bad thing. However, I don't know how that impacts our property, and that is my largest concern. Because we do have animal on property, bringing more homes into the area does reduce the deer population out here because they don't freely roam as much, and so many other things that are very similar to that. And we have seen a lot of change out here in the last 10 years, even with the way the deer run. So, you know, that's my concerns and for consideration.
Thank you. Andrea Renner?
Andrea Renner, 5327 Columbia Road. So, let me make just a couple general comments. I love the general appearance standards idea. I don't like the cluster homes, so I'm glad you are kind of pushing that off, or have pushed it off. And I hate that our farmland is disappearing, and per some of these conversations and previous ones. The reason I came to the meeting, my primary concern is similar to Mary's and the flooding. I'm right next to Mary, and we flood. I wouldn't say every time it rains, but as soon as the ground is saturated, we flood often over the street. We've taken our own steps to remedy the situation, which it's not going to happen. I mean, it's just going to go into Mary's yard more now, or hopefully go in. I mean, the city has tried some, but we don't have the money. It's always we don't have the money. That's an issue for me too, because I work in Columbus, so I pay taxes twice for PTASPA. So my primary concern is that this is going to just cause more flooding problems. I didn't even think about the water, like Mary said, and having the supply of water. My head was on, geez, we can't do anything else that's going to affect the flooding. So those are just my general concerns. The flooding. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a land person. I don't know what it's going to do, but I just can't imagine that it's going to be good unless there's serious consideration given to fixing the drainage problems and it's right there in front. It starts in the field we're talking about and goes right into Mary's yard, then into my yard, and it's like 2 feet deep. It's not just a little bit of water. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is that going to be well, or is that city water? Those 3 plots. So it's well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's up to
Okay, deliberation time. Yes, Scott, come on up and have your rebuttal.
I just wanted to add a couple of things here and just clarify what you already did. It is going to be 3 lots and not 16. We're reducing it from 13 to 3. The property is going to remain agricultural zoning. There's no request here for any change in zoning. It's going to remain agricultural. In the lot splits, the replat as we have submitted, it does meet the agricultural code as it is now. It's 10-acre minimum with 250 feet of width throughout. So it does meet the current code. We don't need any rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Do I need to swear in again?
No, you're already sworn.
Okay. I own the property, the 19 acres, directly to the east of it, and I ask that you approve this request for replat. I feel like it follows the spirit and the intent of PTASPA. Thank you.
With this this just stops here, or this does not go on to council, or does it?
This would end here.
This would
So
end here.
it doesn't have to
Okay.
go to council as we're planning.
Yep.
So basically, his request is to fix
It's confusing.
an issue.
An issue.
We had 13 lots that nobody could ever build on legally without going through all kinds of variances and everything. So he's just taking the land and actually making it usable now, but still keeping it according to all agricultural zoning and all that, correct?
Reducing the platted impact.
That's what the applicant stated in their narrative, of what they're trying to do. So as the smaller lots are now, you wouldn't be able to build a structure on them without getting a variance. But he's including that larger parcel behind it, which isn't in the subdivision now, but since he's kind of merging all these together, it's a replat. And it essentially becomes, this is what it is. If ever wanted to change that again, they'd have to come back through the replat process and do it again.
So it's really fixing an error
It's fixing it.
that was done a long, long time ago.
13 small home lots to 3 farms.
The 3 farms, yeah.
They didn't have a zoning code back then.
And it's still gonna be green, it could be crops, it could be whatever.
If it's sold off or done, anything like that, that's a whole nother separate,
It's not
if somebody
rezoned.
wants to build, and then
Not
we go through all
rezoned.
the stuff for the water and everything in the development of it.
It'd be a rezoning and everything, right?
If they,
Just replat.
No, I mean, if they wanted to,
Oh.
if one of those 3 lots wanted to develop in the future, it'd have to go through rezoning and everything.
yeah,
Land development district and all.
if it's approved, there's 3 lots, someone could put 1 house on each of those lots. If they wanted to do anything more than that, then they'd have to split the lot, go through a replat, and probably in any case rezone it.
Correct.
Mhm. Charlie, any questions?
No, good.
Ann?
No, I'd like to thank the neighbors for coming and sharing, and, I always try to go at these things, obviously, first code, what code allows, what the property owner, is permitted to do with their property or not, and how it's going to affect, the neighbors, the environment, that kind of thing. But, so I always try to go at it if I were the neighbor or that, and look at it that way too. So, it looks to me like, 3 houses would have to go by code to build a house. If they wanna build a house, they have to go by code. They're not allowed to, that's Jack's job to make sure the water running off from that property isn't affecting the neighbors.
As long as Jack does his job, I'm good.
Yeah, because it does.
Well, it's not really Jack's
No
job,
pressure,
it's the
Jack.
engineer's
Jack's name
job.
that.
I'm not gonna put it all on Jack.
Mostly Alan Haynes.
It's actually Alan Haynes' job, but anyway, so I think it would be an improvement for the neighbors personally. So, that's all I have.
Thank you. Dustin?
I concur with that.
There?
I actually agree with you.
Agree too. Okay, with that being said, are we ready to make a motion? Who wants to make a motion?
Move to approve replat application number REP 19002 pursuant to section 1113.48 of the Pataskala Code. Are there any modifications listed? With the
yes,
2
there's
modifications
2.
listed.
Motion, second? Second by Charlie. Roll?
Mr. Truax?
Yes.
Mr. Epperson?
Yes.
Ms. Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Bigelow?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Motion passed. Other than that, we have a lot of clerical stuff we're gonna do. You guys are welcome to stay, or you're more than welcome to go. Thank you all for coming. All right, moving on to 6 for other business. I don't see anything for other business. Is there anything, Jack, you know, or Lisa? No new business? Or other business? I don't know if that's a part where we want to put Ann's request that she gave to Scott. That might want to go under other business.
Right, I was
Right.
gonna ask you about that.
Yeah. for the village.
Yes,
Okay.
historic district, make it official.
Make it official. Okay, moving on past that then, approval for the minutes for the public hearing for Wednesday, October 2nd.
I'll make a
2000.
motion.
Motion made by Darren, I'll second it. Roll?
Mr. Truax.
Yes.
Ms. Rogers.
Abstain?
Mr. Epperson.
Yes.
Mr. Bagerow.
Yes.
Mr. McGowan.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Abstain.
Motion pass. And we're at 8. I'll make a motion we adjourn. Second? I'll make a motion we adjourn.
He was second, I'm sorry.
Dustin?
Thank you.
Roll?
Ms. Rogers.
Yes.
Mr. McGowan.
Yes.
Mr. Epperson.
Yes.
Mr. Bagerow.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Truax.
Yes.